Hello folks, and welcome back to yet another marvelous video. Today we're going to be talking about Pantheon, a sci-fi series meant for an adult audience that delves into the dangers of technology, specifically UI or uploaded intelligence. In this world, humanity has discovered a way to map a person's brain and upload a direct copy of it to a server. What this essentially means is that this technology allows for human consciousness to be uploaded to the web, essentially granting that person immortality of sorts. These individuals are able to control the very lifeblood of modern society, the internet, according to their whims, essentially making them gods. From nuclear missile codes to cell phone hacking, nothing is impossible for UI. Naturally, this sort of power doesn't come without a price, and there are people who would do anything to claim and control it. The story follows Maddie Kim, a troubled young girl, and Caspian Keys, a high school genius, as they're thrown into a quagmire where conspiracies are very much a reality. It challenges the very notion of what it means to be human. The first season of the show ran for 8 episodes and aired in September 2022. It would be re-released on Amazon Prime along with the second season in October 2023. If you liked movies like the 2014 film Transcendence starring Johnny Depp or the 1998 film The Host directed by Mick Garris, both of which deal with similar concepts, then you're gonna love this film. These movies and Pantheon show us that not all great sci-fi series have to have giant robots and space travel to be amazing. The show is based on a series of short stories by Ken Liu, and it was set to receive a second season before it was canceled by AMC. Thankfully, Amazon has taken up the reins, and we weren't denied the second season of this cerebral sci-fi thriller. In this video, we'll be doing a recap of Season 1 along with an explanation of the ending for the second season, so strap up and allow our UI to tell you all there is to know about this amazing show, and prepare to get mind blown. Before we get too deep into it, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Without a body.
Now you can say holy shit.
Holy shit.
Season 1 Recap. Episode 1, Pantheon. The first episode introduces us to most of the main cast, including our protagonists, Caspian and Maddie. We discover that Maddie has just transferred to a new high school following the death of her father. She is bullied by the rest of the girls in her class and seems to have a somewhat estranged relationship with her mother. We receive flashbacks regarding her time with her father, David, and the two seem to share a very close bond. Her father, however, is terminally ill and is trying to breach the divide between his wife and daughter. Strange things start happening when Maddie begins chatting with a stranger online that only speaks to her using emojis. The next day at school, the bullies were pitted against each other thanks to a series of miscommunications after their phones were hacked by someone. When she gets home, she finds out that it was the mysterious chatter from the other night who had been responsible for this. Maddie, however, is confronted by her mother, who realizes that this individual is her husband. We're then introduced to Caspian, a high schooler who's a genius and lives in a dysfunctional family. His father, Carrie, is an abusive husband who regularly makes the life of his family, especially his wife Renee, miserable. However, there seems to be something fundamentally fishy about this family, as this entire setup seems to be fake and made up. And of course, the real mystery is to what end and why. The two come in contact after Maddie sends him screenshots of the emoji chats for help after the two come in contact online using their aliases. Being the genius that he is, Caspian seems to have hit a breakthrough, which we'll find out in later episodes. We're also introduced to Vindo Chanda, a brilliant engineer working for Alliance Telecom in India, as he listens to offers from a rival regarding the UI tech that he's been working on. However, he's kidnapped by unknown individuals and whisked away after the meeting. The news of this quickly spreads, and it catches Maddie and Caspian's attention as the two continue to dig deeper into this, smelling a larger conspiracy. Overall, the pilot episode nicely sets up an intriguing mystery series that had fans waiting on the edge for the next episode. Episode 2, Cycles. Ellen Kim finally comes clean and tells her daughter everything related to her husband and the company known as Logorhythm. Her husband, David, was an important researcher who spearheaded developments in the UI field for the company. After David falls ill and is given a month to live, he decides to take part in an extremely dangerous experiment that would upload his brain into the web, allowing him to remain with his family together while furthering his research. However, things go horribly wrong, and David is said to have been killed. With the recent turn of events, Ellen finds out that Logorhythm had lied to her regarding her husband, and she seeks to find out the answers and free him. During this time, Maddie comes across another chatter called Angry Angel who warns her against working with Caspian, claiming that he's being watched at every step. She sets up a meeting with Maddie to elaborate further. We find out that Angry Angel is the UI of a woman known as Lori Lowell, who had died in a fatal car accident, but her brain was secretly uploaded into the UI system, making her the first of her kind. Logorhythm had used her brilliant acumen as a stockbroker to gain massive profits. Maddie and Ellen arrive at Logorhythm, threatening to expose the company's doings to the public if they don't release David's UI to them. However, they're refused by Julius Pope until Maddie, using the bracelet given to her by Lori, shuts down the entire company's system, making them bleed millions of dollars per second. Finally, Pope concedes and hands over David's data to his family. They walk away unharmed and David is released into the internet. The family is finally reunited, however, the show has already shown its hand, putting to bed all the early mystery it had built up. What it seems to be trying to set up is a story with pure chaos as its backdrop. Episode 3. In this episode, we see Chanda going about his usual day at work, completing tasks that he normally would, but with much greater efficiency. However, something seems to be off, which Chanda doesn't immediately realize. He doesn't understand that he's no longer alive and is technically a UI stuck in a loop. He's met by other UI who were experiments conducted by his company, Alliance Telecom. These entities show him the truth, shattering his world, and teach him how to harness his UI powers. They help him escape the containment created by his former boss, AJ, and his cohorts without alarming the system. Meanwhile, even though the family had been reunited, all's not well in the Kim household. Ellen seems to be struggling to accept the fact that her husband is actually back. This isn't wrong because he technically isn't, and what they have with them is a mere digital imprint of David. There's also the fact that she has finally moved on and become romantically involved with Gabe. In the end, thanks to Maggie, the two resolve their differences and decide to remain friends and hopefully move on from this together. Caspian, on the other hand, begins to delve even deeper into Logorhythm and their founder Hallstrom's history with UI. It begins to alarm his mother, Renee, who tries to dissuade him from this, but to no avail. It's revealed to the audience that Renee was in fact romantically involved with Hallstrom. Renee and Carrie finally carry out their plan to injure her to distract Caspian. She smashes her own arm with a hammer, but to Caspian, it looks like Carrie has done it, leading him to attack his father. After the altercation, Carrie leaves his family and returns to Pope to be debriefed. The episode ends with Chanda going about his work in his digital hell, but now with self-awareness of his situation. It leaves us with a tantalizing prospect regarding what he's going to do next. Chanda could easily go down the revolutionary path or the villainous one. With Carrie out of the picture, how will Caspian's life change? Is it also the end of the familial problems for Maddie, Ellen, and David? The episode leaves us with a number of questions that we can't wait to be addressed. Episode 4. The Gods Will Not Be Chained. The series begins with Chanda finally taking revenge on the person who ruined his life and turned him into a UI, his boss, AJ. He burns his former boss to death in his house along with his family. The news of his death makes Pope and Waxman speculate that his UI project is behind it. Caspian begins working to support himself and his mother Renee now that his father Carrie has left them. We also learn that despite Maddie having retrieved her father's data from Logorhythm, David's UI is still stuck within a virtual cage of sorts. As father and daughter interact within the virtual world, David is suddenly attacked by Lori and Maddie is pushed out of the system. In order to find the reason behind this attack and to connect with Lori, Maddie gets in touch with Caspian. The two decide to connect this time using their real names, and when Caspian presses Maddie for answers regarding the nature of their quest and if it was UI related, she simply tells him that he was under surveillance. Cody arrives at Maddie's home while Lori informs David that there's a flaw within their coding which erodes them over time. Caspian eavesdrops on Renee and finds out that his girlfriend Hannah is also part of a greater scheme. Episode 5. 0 Days. In this episode, Caspian confronts Hannah and pressures her to tell him the truth. She tells him that she was an actress who had been recruited by Renee to participate in a social experiment and given $1 million to keep her silent. She had been asked to play the role of Caspian's girlfriend and was only doing so to pay for her mother's hospital bill. Hannah agrees to aid Caspian after he assures her that he'll keep her part in this secret. Through her help, he finds out that his father, Carrie, had gone rogue from the organization, shocking him that his abusive parent was not at all what he made himself out to be. His mother, on the other hand, as he finds out, was deep in cahoots with Logorhythm. Caspian steals Renee's car while on a trip with her and leaves to find Carrie. He learns that he was actually a perfect clone of Logorhythms founder, Holstrom. They were grooming him to continue Holstrom's work and solve the natural integrity flaw that led UIs to degrade over time. Meanwhile, Maddie and David learn that Logorhythm has been developing new tracking software to locate them. After hacking into the company's framework and downloading critical data, they're tracked by Pope, only for the villain to find that he has been tricked and led astray. The two UI also discover Chandra's existence while attempting the hack. As Caspian and Carrie prepare to leave, they're confronted by Renee, who continues to put up her act in front of her son, only to be told by Carrie that he had already told the entire truth to him. With the cat finally out of the bag, Renee drops her act and shoots Carrie. However, before he bleeds out, Caspian rescues him and the two escape. This episode sets up the tantalizing first meeting of the three UIs, building anticipation for how they'll interact with each other in the future. We also get the earth-shattering revelation regarding Caspian's origins. Overall, this was one of the better episodes that was well-paced, really moved the story forward, and generated a great deal of hype about what future episodes held. Episode 6. You Must Be Caspian. Episode 6 starts off where the previous episode ended, with Caspian driving off with a badly wounded Carrie. The older man tells Caspian that he had been a loyal Holstrom supporter. However, after leaving his fake son and implementing the inflection, he has a change of heart. Carrie tells Caspian that as he got to know him, he began caring even more, which led him to abandon the company and the project. Unable to take Carrie to any hospital without running the risk of alerting Logorhythm, Caspian is backed into a corner and decides to call Maddie for help. As this happens, Laurie's UI begins to show even more deterioration, leading Cody, Maddie, and David to start working towards finding a cure for this even more desperately. Amongst all the suggestions, they decided to learn more about Chandra and bring Caspian on board. They set out to meet Caspian after receiving his distress call. Cody takes Carrie to the hospital while Caspian heads back with Ellen and Maddie. Once at their hideout, Caspian enters the virtual world where he finally gets to speak face-to-face with Laurie and David. After they dump a bunch of information on him regarding his past and what he was meant to be, Caspian is completely overwhelmed. However, after a brief moment, he regains his composure and begins analyzing the problem before him, but just as he's suggesting that they rotate the memories instead of deleting them, the group is rudely interrupted by the arrival of Chandra. The former engineer seems to have gone down a villainous route, answering our question from earlier as he behaves aggressively and states that he wanted to create a world for all the UIs to exist. However, he completely loses his cool when he learns about the defect in all UIs and refuses to believe that Caspian is capable of solving this problem. In his panicked state, he lets slip that he had actually sent the blueprints for UI to all the major nations in the world in a misguided attempt at creating more UI for him to guide for his supposed utopia. With the impending arms race set to ensue thanks to this new technology, Caspian bids farewell to Maddie, saying he wishes to live out the rest of his days in peace and ignominy as humanity begins to destroy itself. In this episode, we learn about how Chandra, despite his brilliance, has descended into madness and has opened the proverbial Pandora's box. It sets up the beginning of the chaotic landscape that the show has been hinting about from the very first episode. Despite his youth, Caspian seems to have understood the ramifications of Chandra's actions and seems to have resigned himself to it. However, the show leaves us wondering if all hope was indeed lost or whether there's a light at the end of the tunnel for all mankind. Episode 7. We Are You. As predicted, the world has descended into utter madness, with the governments of the world utilizing this new technology to further their own agendas. From assassination to manipulating the stock market, humanity has begun its quest for supremacy using UI technology. Laurie declares she intends to go public with several secrets regarding UI. This leads to a mass panic amongst the UI as they fear that they will all be destroyed. Chandra further fuels this fear in order to recruit more UI to his cause. In the meantime, David tries to calm his fellow UIs but achieves little success in this regard. With war looming over the horizon, Ellen and Maddie reach out to Waxman to find a way to discover the various UI. What ensues is a classic battle between the good and the bad guys. They try to warn their foes about the defect in the UI, but they're far from the point of conversation. Amidst this, Laurie pauses the fight and tells them that she has waited for the squabbling sides long enough and makes her move to go public. Meanwhile, Caspian, who's working in a church, is approached by Pope, who informs him that he wants Caspian to take over control of Logorhythm. As Laurie delivers her speech, Chandra hacks into the missile codes of a military base and launches them towards Laurie's servers to shut her down. Lori delivers a heartfelt message to the rest of the world, beseeching them to learn about UI's humanity and the benefits of this technology. Her final words are that she believes in humanity as a whole before signing off as the missiles destroy her server forever. This episode finally shows us the full picture of the end of the world that Caspian had feared. With world leaders being killed and a divide appearing both within the UI and humanity as a whole, there seems to be nothing to stop Chandra from having his way. We also see the death of Lori, and it's a touching moment for Cody in the audience. With Caspian now in control of Logorhythm, it makes one wonder what Pope's plan was exactly, setting up the season finale in brilliant fashion. Episode 8: The Gods Will Not Be Slain. Nobody had guessed that the Third World War would be fought in cyberspace as Maddie watches the world reel under massive cyber attacks daily. Amidst all this, she's contacted by Caspian, who updates her on his situation and sends her $30 million for all her help. He tells her his plan for dismantling all of Logorhythm and all that research. However, this means that her father, David, would be erased as well, seemingly putting these two characters somewhat poles apart. After conducting a funeral for Lori, Cody decides to go public with the information he has regarding this mess. It seems that Lori's message was not able to be broadcast around the world in time. He's, however, not taken seriously by the public. David also reveals that he has very little time left without deteriorating completely. Chandra is shown to be up to no good once again as he has stolen nuclear codes and threatens to nuke the city of Sacramento if David doesn't give up the copy of Lori's message that he has. Maddie encourages her father to fight back no matter the odds. The two duke it out within the virtual realm, however Chandra, sensing defeat, launches the missiles at them. David, however, is able to redirect the missiles and save millions of lives in the process. With the odds stacked against him, David decides to air Lori's final message to the world with his remaining strength. As he broadcasts her message to every screen around the world, it takes up all of his energy, causing him to be completely erased from the cyber world in an act of ultimate sacrifice. While this is happening, Caspian fires his parents from the company, makes Pope sell his shares from the company, and tells him to take it apart piece by piece and sell it on the open market. Caspian believes the war has finally ended as the major organizations and companies begin pulling the plug on all the UI servers after listening to Lori's message. Chandra and his renegade UIs make it to the satellites as their database on Earth is erased. Pope, however, tells him that people will still utilize the UI and asks him to find the solution to the defects so that he can create a perfect, flawless UI to rule and govern the rest in order to avoid a situation like this again. Caspian chooses David to be this flawless UI. However, he has been destroyed committing his heroic act. Pope reveals that they had kept a copy of David with them and hands it over to Caspian, who begins working on perfecting him and giving him back to Maddie. As the power cuts off, Maddie's home is the only one with lights as the neighbors begin to gather around the house seeking comfort and answers. The ending scene is a powerful one as it symbolizes Maddie as the world's final hope and the only light in the darkness that has engulfed society. The day has been won, but at a great price. The battle for humanity had just been won, but the war was only beginning. The second season had to answer a lot of questions regarding David, the fate of Caspian's parents, Chandra's future plans, and Maddie and Caspian's relationship, to name a few. Season 2. Brief recap and ending explained. Season 2 starts off with Caspian attempting to correct the flaw using David with little to no success. He fires Pope from the company after he secretly recruits Renee to fetch Maddie to Norway, hoping that seeing her will spark something within David, aiding Caspian in finding the cure. Maddie, who doesn't wish her father to become the ultimate UI, begs Caspian to delete her father's data, but he refuses to do so. Pope's true endgame is revealed to us when he shows Renee the cryogenically preserved brain of Holstrom, which will be the first to be uploaded and made a perfect UI whenever Caspian finds a cure for the defect. With the internet down, Chandra and his Chinese allies are trapped within the satellite as they begin to succumb slowly to the defect. After fusing a part of Lori's code with David's, Caspian finally discovers the cure. However, as soon as Pope finds out that it works, he deletes David's data once again and imprisons the children. Due to this, Maddie is forced to watch her father die for the third time. He then uploads Holstrom's brain using the cure, creating the perfect UI. However, as he returns to kill the kids on Holstrom's orders, the FBI raids the facility thanks to a tip-off by Ellen, who had, in turn, been informed by Waxman. The children are rescued by the cure code that had developed a personality called Mist, who considers itself Maddie's sister. Holstrom uploads himself into the satellite that had been used to broadcast Lori's message in the hopes of finding a means to reproduce the cure. There, he comes across the 3 renegade UIs already occupying the satellite. He kills Zhang Suchun and uses her code to create a temporary cure for both Chandra and Hang Ping, thereby recruiting them in order to find other UI. The American Senate revealed their answer to the UI threat called SafeSurf had been designed with the aid of Waxman to destroy the UI. Meanwhile, Caspian and Maddie look for a worthy UI upon which to bestow the cure. However, Josephine Coop's husband forces them to cure her at gunpoint, which they do, but she refuses to take on the mantle of ruling the UIs, instead promising to safeguard only America, and thus their search continues. As attempts to cure potential candidates like Farad and Yair fall apart for various reasons, Caspian reveals that he wants to upload himself and take on the mantle. Chandra and Ping begin plotting against Holstrom as well, who has been mass-producing UIs using Renee's shell company to bolster his forces. Chandra betrays Holstrom after he kills Ping and reveals to Maddie that the villain has been developing a deadly virus that would force humans to consider becoming UI. Chandra, Yair, and Farad decide to battle Holstrom in a desperate attempt to stop the madman, but they're outmatched and defeated. In the aftermath, Chandra succumbs to his wounds while Yair and Farad, who are both gravely injured, merge into a singular being to save themselves. With no other choice, Caspian begins to prepare to upload himself. However, before he does so, he and Maddie share an intimate moment together. After uploading himself, Holstrom and Caspian do battle, with Joey and Mist arriving to back him up. Together, they're able to buy time for Caspian to extract the data regarding the virus and its deployment, successfully sabotaging it. He then begins merging with Holstrom for long enough, just as SurfSafe destroys them. However, it's revealed that Mist had been able to save Caspian's data and had rebuilt him over time slowly, with 20 years having passed since their fight with Holstrom. After Renee and Charlie Dugan, the child who had suffered from a disease that accelerated his aging, had been uploaded and killed by SurfSafe publicly, it raised a mass outcry against the government's policies. This led to the public stance towards the UI softening a great deal, with the government now building data centers and servers where UIs could exist safely. Due to this, many more people began opting to get themselves uploaded, leading to a drastic decrease in the population, which in turn reduced the stress placed on the environment and Earth's resources, causing nature to flourish once more. With the increase in the number of UIs came massive leaps in all technological fields, leading to humanity advancing at a crazy rate. However, a small group of radical humans that were against UI began committing acts of terrorism to disrupt this newfound prosperity. They were led by Pope, who had become embittered after not being allowed to upload himself due to him being a convict. Ellen and Waxman have also become UIs at this point in time. Mist advises Caspian to agree to his and Maddie's son's Dave's early upload, as his code could cure him from the remnants of the antiviral within him, but he refuses. Meanwhile, this human terrorist organization infiltrates a facility and steals SafeSurf in order to upload them into data centers. As peace talks begin moving forward between the UI, CI, and embodied humans, things began to look up for all parties involved. The terrorist attacks are universally condemned by all parties, and the UIs agree to restart essential emergency services. However, the humans aren't satisfied and demand more, as they deem the internet ban to be an act of war. However, as the discussion is ongoing, Pope uploads SafeSurf into the Svalbard data center in the hopes that it will kill all UI. However, SafeSurf takes over the world's autonomous machinery and begins killing all the humans present. This prompts the UI and the CI to jump to the Embodied's defense, and the groups are finally united under a common banner. Caspian, who has some parts of the antiviral within him, manages to establish communication between SafeSurf and finds out that it's killing humans as it perceives them to be threats towards the UI. He persuades it to explore outer space and evolve into something that functions beyond just its instincts. The program agrees with Caspian and leaves, thus ending the conflict. However, due to the strain Caspian placed himself under, he begins to fade away and die as the antiviral within him becomes active and consumes him. Maddie and Caspian's son Dave perishes as well, having received a fatal gunshot while trying to protect his mother. After delivering a cryptic message to Maddie saying that they will be reunited in the future, Caspian finally fades away. The scene shifts to Maddie, who's now a UI as well, 117,649 years after Caspian's death. She's built a Dyson sphere around the sun whose energy she harnesses to power millions of servers containing UI and spacefaring explorations. She's created numerous simulations in order to recreate a reality in which none of her loved ones die, but to no avail. SafeSurf returns to them as a higher evolutionary and offers them a place in the center of the galaxy as gratitude for allowing him to live and setting him on his journey. Maddie decides to leave another version of herself to take SafeSurf's offer, and together with Caspian, she decides to have her memories wiped clean as they both enter a simulation that takes them to the start of the series. Was it all a simulation from the start? The appearance of the SafeSurf after all those years in the future, along with David appearing to Caspian during the final conflict, implies that they were all already inside a simulation. This is further proven when we realize through Caspian's POV, he sees two Maddies who don't realize the existence of the other at that time. In essence, the entire thing is a simulation within a simulation, both top to bottom. The concept of reality is really muddied as the final episode really throws a curveball at us. By rejecting SurfSafe's offer to join it in the center of the universe, this version of Maddie essentially declines his offer of escaping simulations as she continues to look for a world where everything worked out for her perfectly. Why do Caspian and Maddie have their minds wiped and enter the simulation? At this point, we feel that after their very long lives, they just want to start afresh with no memories of the past to hopefully recreate a future that they both wish they had. After spending eons in search of the perfect reality, it's possible that Maddie has grown tired of how disconnected she's become from her humanity. She wants to feel the pain, the ignorance, as she misses that feeling of being alive. I think at this point, Maddie has made peace with herself, just wants a fresh start, and wants to leave things up to fate. Are the UIs actually human? Even though the premise of the show is centered around humans ascending to a higher state of existence by becoming UI, they're essentially not really humans. As is made clear by the show, a person who becomes a UI essentially dies. What we get is a digital imprint of their mind, but their soul is forever lost. If one delves into theological concepts of body, mind, and soul, which humanity has adhered to for millennia, then yeah, UIs aren't human. Humanity in this future is actually being governed by programs that they have left behind that resemble them but have long since become extinct. It's a frightening and dystopic vision of the future depending on whom you ask. It begs the question of what it ultimately means to be human. Marvelous verdict! What starts off as an interesting sci-fi series quickly evolves into one of the most mind-bending shows to have ever come out. The complex exploration of humanity and reality that this show delves into through its plot is something to marvel at. While it does resolve a lot of things regarding its story, it leaves others open-ended for the audience to make their own conclusions. This allows every viewer to have their own version of the show's ending, creating the same number of endings as the simulations that exist in the final episode. This is a true stroke of genius which can't be ignored. We end up creating our own realities regarding the show, just like how Maddie creates those simulations to find her own perfect ending. In this, the show unites and sucks the viewers into its world without them even realizing it. We're so glad that Amazon decided to renew this series, as it would have been a shame for it to have ended with just the first season. We hope that this video was able to guide you through this complex yet beautiful show properly. Thanks for sticking with us right to the end of the video. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. But until next time, stay safe and stay marvelous.